and contiguous, and it has to have commonalities. You got to have the people in Missoula should be a little tiny piece of pizza for all of Missoula because they're all urban issues. And then the rural folks should be included in big rural districts because those commonalities just exist strongly in those areas.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's safe to assume that just because you live in Montana, you understand Montana. I'll poke a little fun at Matt Regier, whom I dearly love. He was at the Brash Rodeo a couple weeks ago. And Matt's lived in this state, I think, all his life. And I see him at the Brash Rodeo, and I said, hey, this is a great time, huh? He goes, I don't know. I've never been here before to the Brash Rodeo. Well, I go every Thursday, and so does half the town, you know. Matt lives a few miles down the street. Now, it's not to poke too much fun at Matt, but the fact is you know, he lives locally. Here's something you would expect. Like, he's been to the rodeo before, and he had not. So this guy that represents you in downtown Missoula in that little piece of the pie, he may not know the first thing about forestry control. The only thing he might know is that, man, it got smoky this last summer from the fires way out there, right?
Yeah. No, we're also getting into the tenor or the character of the representative. Sure, that representative he can cover both, or she. But what I'm saying is, historically, I know the folks in Seeley Lake really well, and they literally have not seen their representative in a decade because he doesn't need to go out there to win that race.
Yeah.
And of course, that representative was Bryce Bennett, and now he's in the Senate. So if you know what I mean, you don't even need to go out there. You don't even need to go visit it because you can win without even putting a sign up out there.
Sure.
And so that's why it's really important. And then when and the really sad thing is, if you look at it for the Democrats, 9 times, well, maybe not 9 times, that's anecdotal, but a lot of times out of 10, their legislators are either retired teachers, retired employees of the state, current employees of the state, and they're mostly urban. And so these folks, especially folks that have never been in the private sector, have only been in the public, man, what a huge disconnect you have with your districts. You know, so when you draw that map, especially look at the map out of Helena, same kind of thing. You get out toward Townsend, you get out to those areas. You know what I mean? You got a retired state employee is the representative living in downtown Helena, and they've got all these ranches in the outside edges of their district. No commonalities whatsoever. Doesn't even need to go out there. And so, yeah, that's why it's so important. You want these big ag issues and small community issues and local control issues. You want all those. Then you got to make darn sure the district is drawn to where your representative comes to you to get that perspective.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're a citizen and you don't feel like you're being represented, appropriately, it's important that you pay attention to the redistricting, who represents you in your district, and let your voice be heard, because it's so important, especially as we go through this process right now, because it could be too late and you could be stuck with somebody in the urban development representing you and your farm 20 miles away.
Exactly right. And if sometimes in the districts, you're going to catch some of those folks. You're going to get some blending in districts. But again, you nailed it on the head, man. If we get the government we deserve. So if you are involved and you're constantly reaching out and you're letting your representative know your issues and what's important to you, guess what, man? That guy or girl would be more responsive to your issues when they go serve.
Derek, you make light of the politics in a fun way. You're knowledgeable. You're terming out. Where are you going next, and what's on the docket for you? And then I want you to touch on, I heard you say yesterday, we're replacing the Skees with the Skees. So tell me what that meant.
All right. Well, first, it was an incredible honor to serve the folks in House District 11 down there in Lakeside Summers, bottom part of Kalispell, Marion, all the way to the river. My district had a bunch of folks. It had city folks. It had ranch owning folks. It had farmers in the lower valley. But I really try hard to get out there and talk to as many of them and be available to all of them. My phone number's on everything, emails everywhere. But just what an honor to serve, to sit in that chamber and look at that painting and realize the tradition of that. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I just really, really thank the good people of Montana for having the confidence in me to send me there. And I'm never going to forget it. But they've also spoken and said that term limits are important. And I have served 8 years, which is basically 4 terms in the House. And so I am done. I can go to the Senate if I wanted to, but I'm kind of a ground and struggle individual. I love the scrum, so to speak, where the ball's on the ground and we're all fighting for it. And that's not what the Senate is.
Yeah.
Senate's a snooze chamber, slow, and I wouldn't fit well in the Senate. I don't like Lawrence Welk music, and the bubble machine would drive me crazy.
Nobody knows who Lawrence Welk is anymore. Okay.
Yeah, good point. Someone's going to be looking that up right now. And bubble machine, what the? So I don't want to go into the Senate. But the whole time I've been in the House, I've been involved in a committee called FRET, Federal Relations, Energy, and Telecommunications. And so I've been an energy guy the whole time I've been there. And I've been fortunate to be in leadership for 3 of my 4 terms. So I was vice chair of that committee twice. I was chair of the interim committee, and I was chair of the committee last cycle. So, and that group, that committee, especially during the interim, which is basically in between sessions, has oversight of the Public Service Commission. And the Public Service Commission is the group. We have monopolies in Montana. Mm-hmm. If we allow the monopolies to operate freely, the price goes up. That's what monopolies do. There's no incentive to be competitive. So historically, we started out in Montana with the railroads having this problem. So we created a thing called the Railroad Commission to approve rate increases of these monopolies. Fast forward to this time frame, we've done the same thing now with power companies that have monopolies, natural gas companies, taxis, garbage trucks. The folks that have monopolies and there's little or no competition in an area, they have to go to the PSC to get a rate increase. I know extensively that information, what that is. I've studied that job. I've interacted with those commissioners. We had an audit come out and it was kind of damning and a lot of problems. And I've known there's been some problems in the PSC for the last 6 years. And I'm just excited to get in there. I want to run for that seat. That's that's Public Service District 5.
Yeah.
And just want to we got 2 new folks in there that are really great. Jennifer Fielder and Jim Brown. Jim Brown's now the chair. And they're doing some great things to bring that board and that position around. And man, I want to get involved and get part of that. Because if that commission, the PSC, if they fail, then you and I as ratepayers suffer. Mm-hmm. And so we really got to get that right. And I'm fortunate that my skill set and my history and my knowledge is pretty much strongly into that. So I thought in order to keep serving Montana, I'll go into a job where I can be the most effective.
Love it. Do what you know and love.
And then the last part about the 2 Skees.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're a smart man and you're going to get into politics, and this is me back in 2010, very first thing you do is sit down with your wife and make sure that's okay, and your family if you have children. You got to make sure it's good with the family, because if your family isn't thriving when you're in public service, you shouldn't be in public service. And so that's the first thing I did. And my wife and I talked about it, prayed about it, looked at the shortfalls, the advantages, the things we need to do to strengthen ourselves. And we became a very strong team. As a matter of fact, we call ourselves the Montana Skees team. Makes for great T-shirts, by the way.
Yeah, that.
And so she's been right there with me the last 2 cycles. She's served as the journal clerk for the House, and so she's intimately knowledgeable of the inner workings of the chamber, how it's supposed to work, the rules, and she's got a great heart for service. She has a different set of concerns than I do. She was the Alzheimer's ambassador, so the care of the elderly, families in crisis, young women, that's her bailiwick. She loves that stuff. So I think she'll get into health and human services and that kind of an angle. So she definitely is not the same Skees that I am. But the district is used to voting for Skees. They're used to seeing all of us out at events, and she goes with me almost everywhere we go. And so she wants to continue that strong tradition of Skees service to the state of Montana. And I'm excited that she's going to run for that House District 11 seat, and definitely going to try to do what I can to help her win it, and looking forward to the next cycle with her there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we all appreciate your sacrifice that you've made and your family's made to play these roles. What are ways that you would suggest people can get involved in, I don't want to say our election cycles, but just the politics of the state, are maintaining what a lot of people consider Montana values, and the things that we love about living here and raising our families here?
Excellent question. And I'm biased. I would say get involved with your local Republican Party. But really what you should do, especially if you're new to the civics game and you see that things are not the way you thought they should be and you want to get involved, the very first thing I would do is sit down and have a good heart-to-heart with yourself and your partner and identify what principles you think are important. What's the role of government? Is it more important than the role of the individual? What's the role of taxes? How it should be spent? What's the size of government relative to the private sector? Is government's real job to enforce and secure our liberties? And if so, how do you do that? Ask yourself those hardcore questions, answer those questions honestly to yourself, and then explore the parties and find one that fits it. The left, it's unfortunate that they say they're one thing, like they're for the little guy, but they're really not. And I say left because there's left in Republicans and Democrats. It's funny. I told a reporter once, I said, there's Democrats in both parties, but there's only Republicans in one. And so do your study, and you might even identify with the libertarians. They think a lot like the Republicans. The biggest difference is they believe that government doesn't have the right basically to tell us to do hardly anything. And so they're for the legalization of prostitution, for the legalization of drugs. They don't accept God in their platform. And so they have some base differences. I love the libertarian perspective. I am a borderline libertarian. My problem is we live in an amoral society. By design, the left has destroyed the morals of this country. And you cannot have the libertarian perspective with an amoral society. We'll spin apart and destroy each other. So my argument with all my libertarian buddies is let's work the conservative angle, get us back to a moral society. Let's teach the folks of what their social responsibilities are. And as more and more of us understand that and get a strong grasp of that, you bet, man, let's go back to the libertarian perspective of get out of my house, get out of my business, get out of my church, get out of my community.
Right.
I'll be right there with them.
Well, it's interesting. When I was younger, I never thought I wanted to be involved in politics. I always thought, those guys are nerds, and I had my perspectives. But what I've found, and this is just for our listeners that live here in the Flathead County, I have found some great new friends at the Pachyderm meetings. They got a Liberty meeting on Thursday nights, and there's a lot of different activities that the Republican Party puts on. And I thought, what are just a great group of people. I've made new friends that are all like-minded with my values that seem to align with Montana values. And it has nothing against the other parties. I just feel like what's in line with what I moved here for and what I see here really resonates me within these groups of people that I've met. So don't be afraid to get involved. The Pachyderm Club is a great club. Like I said, I've met a lot of wonderful people there. And see what's out there and what fits for your own lifestyle, and any way that you can get involved in local politics or the governance of what's happening here.
Amen. You should. And that's just party side of it. You're trying to identify with folks that think the same as you. Beyond that, you should go to, especially if you have children in school, you should go to school board meetings. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, you should go to city council meetings. That's only once a week on Mondays. And you could read the agenda. And if it's something you feel compelled to talk to or listen to, you can even watch it on TV. You don't have to actually be there. And same thing with the commissioners. If they meet once a week, or at least they have an agenda that they post, follow what everybody's doing. Because when government works the best is when it works the least. I firmly believe that. And it works the least when we, the citizens, work the most. And so, man, if you're fired up to get back in the game and figure out how to get involved socially, to be part of the social compact that we have between the citizen and government, man, don't just stop at a couple little things. I always say in my speeches, we meet, we bleat, we eat, we retreat. Because we'll all sit down and we'll all talk about something. And boy, I'm going home and I'm talking to my wife. Boy, did we just talk about blah, 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 blah. Doesn't that feel good? Yeah, that's great. And well, what'd you do? What's the action item? Did you try to convince anybody to go with you the next time? Did you talk to your kids about it? Did you go outside when you're mowing the yard and take a break drinking tea? Did you talk to your neighbor about it? What if, at the big family gatherings and that Uncle Bob and Aunt Sue are communists? Did you try to show them the fallacy of that perspective? And so, this is a game. I probably shouldn't call it a game, but this has to be a life-changing assessment, I think. Don't just dip your foot in the pool. Do like Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live and cannonball that hot tub.
Yeah.
And get in there and fix it, because folks, we're close to getting a tyranny. We already have the soft tyranny. And if last year didn't prove to you what these folks would do with power, you might as well just stay unplugged, because I'd rather you not vote if you don't have that kind of insight. But everybody else, man, gosh, look at this. If we don't get involved and we don't try to change the direction we're going, we're on the route of Venezuela. We're on the route of Cuba. And it's not a pretty future. And socialism is just a pretty word for communism. And communism, everywhere it's tried, is a failed system. And you say, well, what's failed? Everybody's eating. Yeah, but look at the loss of freedoms. Look at China. For decades, told you can only have one child. They're telling you how you can reproduce and how many offspring you can have.